I made a video about 6 months ago called Holding Bitcoin over the next 6 to 12 months will be extremely difficult. And I put in the thumbnail for this video that the parabolic phase is next. At the time, Bitcoin was about $96,000. So if you just held, if you didn't sell in the time that I posted the video until today, you would have made 20% because Bitcoin just reached a new all-time high. We can see here that Bitcoin reached an all-time high today of about $113,800. And I'm not surprised. I was expecting this. I knew this was going to happen. I'm surprised that Bitcoin isn't a lot higher. I think that this Bitcoin bull run's parabolic phase is here. We're going to see much, much higher numbers. It's possible that we see 200, 300, 400K, but keep in mind that we will see a drop at some point. So be prepared for that next Bitcoin bear market. Your goal here should be to hold your Bitcoin for as long as possible, regardless of what's happening with the price. Your goal here should be to make sure that you have Bitcoin for when it does go to 100 million, 200 million, $500 million. I do think that's going to happen within our lifetimes. When a fiat currency loses trust, it never comes back. The trust is just going to fade faster and faster and faster. More and more people are going to want to get rid of their US dollars. And the only real exit from that fiat currency financial system is Bitcoin. Think about it. If you want to buy real estate, you have to go through a bank. You very likely will have to get a mortgage to buy that house. If you want to buy stocks, your holdings are going to be centralized with a brokerage, a custodian. If you want to buy gold, you're probably going to buy it custodied by a bank, and you don't know how much gold actually exists and if your gold is actually there. So if you want to escape from this financial system where more and more money is constantly being printed, the wealthy have a clear advantage because they can go to a bank and they can buy whatever they want to because the bank will give them a loan against their assets. The only real escape is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the only asset that you can take true self custody of without having to rely on banks as a middleman. You can buy Bitcoin without a trusted third party, and it's the only asset that you can truly do this with because it's all standardized. All of the units are standardized. You don't have to measure it. You don't need some kind of physical scale to measure your Bitcoin, unlike gold or silver or other precious metals. One of the reasons why Bitcoin is going through this phase is because people can take self custody of their Bitcoin and then they never have to give it up again. They don't have to give their Bitcoin to an exchange. They don't have to give their Bitcoin to a brokerage. Bitcoin is a digital commodity that has all of the characteristics that we need money to have, and it's the only true form of scarcity that exists on the internet. As more people figure this out, they're going to want Bitcoin. They're going to want more and more of it. When Bitcoin is $1 million a coin, there are going to be a lot more people who want it than the number of people who want it today at about $113,000. Over time, as Bitcoin's value increases and more people see what it is, they're going to want it and they're going to pay whatever they can to get their hands on it. Remember, there's a finite supply of Bitcoin. There's only ever going to be 21 million. So if you have Bitcoin and a billionaire or some trillionaire, somebody who has extreme levels of wealth, if they want it from you, they're going to be willing to pay you whatever you want to take that Bitcoin from you. I guarantee you that eventually there's going to be businesses offering goods and services in exchange for your Bitcoin because you're not going to want fiat currencies at some point. By the end of this parabolic phase that I'm talking about, I would be surprised if Bitcoin isn't above Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia in its market cap. Right now, it's worth $2.26 trillion, and Nvidia is the highest valued company in the world, worth $4.0 trillion. Keep in mind that none of these companies own any Bitcoin on their balance sheets. So their value is going to trend to zero in terms of Bitcoin forever until they start buying Bitcoin. Microsoft has already rejected Bitcoin. They don't plan to buy it because their shareholders don't want to buy it. And I'm assuming it's because they're a little bit older. They don't quite understand what Microsoft is. And they're going to suffer for that. At some point, all of these companies will be accepting Bitcoin for their goods and services. And by then, if you don't have any, you're really going to miss out. I honestly would be surprised if by the time these companies start accepting Bitcoin for their goods and services, it's below $1 million. And keep in mind that when they do say that they're going to start accepting Bitcoin, Bitcoin's price is going to see another run up because the people who want to buy these products and services are going to have to own Bitcoin in order to buy them. The parabolic phase is just beginning. The people who have sold their Bitcoin already, they're out of the market. There are more people on the sidelines than there are in Bitcoin right now. I saw this post from Bar Chart today that says a staggering $7.4 trillion are now sitting in money market funds, a new all-time high. This money is losing value constantly, regardless of what the interest rate is. Even if they get a 5, 6, 7% interest rate, this money is losing value because the US dollar is losing purchasing power at a much faster rate than 5, 6, or 7%. These money market funds are considered to be relatively risk free compared to stocks, compared to real estate, compared to all these other assets. But eventually, the people who have their money in these funds are going to want to invest it. And I think that a lot of this money, I would be surprised if 20% or more doesn't find its way into Bitcoin. The way that Bitcoin's price works, though, is that the price is determined at the margin, meaning that the price is determined based on the people who are willing to sell their Bitcoin. There's only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist. A lot of those are lost, they're gone, they're never going to be accessed. So let's say there's actually 15 million Bitcoin available. If you divide this total by the market cap of Bitcoin, which is something like $2.2 trillion, you'll be able to buy 60 to 70 million Bitcoin with this money. But the price is determined at the margin, and the people who have their money in these money market funds aren't going to get the amount of Bitcoin that they're expecting. The earlier you are to buying Bitcoin, the more of it you'll be able to get. So let's say, for example, if somebody has $1 million in a money market fund today, they'll be able to get maybe 7, 8, 9 Bitcoin. In 10 years, that $1 million may not even be able to buy one Bitcoin. So the sooner you are, the more Bitcoin you'll get, the more of your value will be converted into hard money that can't be debased. You have to remember that there's $7.4 trillion in these funds, and governments are continuously printing more and more. So more and more money is going to be chasing the same amount of Bitcoin. And every time there's a purchase, part of that Bitcoin is locked up forever. Don't be tempted to sell. This cycle may seem big, and we might see a crash at some point. We might see a pullback at some point of 60, 70%. I don't know if that'll happen, but let's say we do. The next cycle is going to be even bigger because more and more money is going to enter the system. Governments are going to have to borrow more and more money in order to just maintain all of the expenses that they're spending money on. This is an all-time high today, but eventually this number will be a rounding error. We're going to see $70 trillion, then we're going to see $700 trillion in these money market funds because the amount of money in the system can keep increasing literally forever. When wealthy people figure out what Bitcoin is, they're going to do whatever they can to get their hands on as much Bitcoin as possible, whether that's 1 Bitcoin, 10 Bitcoin, half a Bitcoin. They're going to give you everything that you want to take your Bitcoin away from you. And then you're never going to get that Bitcoin back. Over time, the value of whatever you get in exchange for your Bitcoin is going to decrease and decrease. It's going to trend to zero because everything else can be created at will while Bitcoin can't. If you sell your entire stack for dollars, I guarantee you that at some point you're going to regret it, and there's nothing that you're going to be able to do to get that Bitcoin back. Just like you get more Bitcoin by buying early, delaying gratification will also make it so that you can buy more things with your Bitcoin. I'm not saying that you need to keep it forever. You can spend your Bitcoin at some point, but make sure that you have a target. Don't just sell blindly because you see a higher price on your screen. Remember, the dollars that you're getting can be printed out of nothing. They're going to keep losing value. Dollars are a melting ice cube. Use your Bitcoin to spend on your lifestyle, but make sure that you're not exchanging your Bitcoin for dollars or for stocks or for real estate just because you think that those assets are going to outperform Bitcoin in the short term, because they're not. You're gambling if you're doing this. You're expecting something that's not truly scarce to outperform something that has an absolute finite supply. Don't gamble with your Bitcoin just because you see a higher price. I think the next 6 months is going to be absolutely insane because we're going to see even more treasury companies coming up. We're going to see even more S&P 500 companies buying Bitcoin and putting it in their treasuries. So as usual, create as much value as you can, buy as much Bitcoin as you can, and keep it protected because at some point you're going to see $1 million, then you're going to see $10 million, then you're going to see $100 million. At some point, today's price, $113,000, is going to be a rounding error. Make sure you're holding on to Bitcoin when that actually happens.